Hello, everyone. I know it's been a while since we've done one of these housing market reports. I've had a lot of moving parts going on, a lot of things happening, so I deferred on these, but let's take a look at our local housing market in Florence as we're approaching the holiday season. Let's get caught up and see where we're at. And before we do, I want to make a disclaimer as to why this information and this type of thing is so important. One thing that people don't realize is that it is very, very, very easy for you to leave a lot of money on the table when it comes to a real estate transaction by hiring a real estate agent that's not intimately familiar with the local housing market that you're a part of. That is an objective fact. I have watched this happen. I have literally watched people leave thousands of dollars on the table and they were completely oblivious that it was happening and why it was happening. The reason that we do these reports is beyond just a marketing strategy. The reality is I firmly believe in the reciprocity effect. I believe in the reciprocal factor, in which if you give something away for free, it will eventually come back to you. And the fact of the matter is, this information will protect you, no matter what real estate agent you decide to hire in your housing transaction, from potentially headaches, heartaches, and leaving possibly thousands of dollars on the table. But a lot of people don't even know what questions to ask. So real quickly, here's a couple of pieces of advice that I say. One, you need to interview at least 3 to 6 real estate agents before deciding who to hire to sell your home. You can't afford to just go with a name you've heard or your sister's friend or the person you went to school with or whatever the case may be, because it's a feel-good idea whenever you could potentially be leaving this kind of money on the table. Secondly, when you interview the real estate agents, you need to know what questions to ask. And this show will at least give you some of the tools to help understand what kind of questions you should be asking to vet out realtors to be certain that they're approaching the sale of your home from a professional disposition. That is, being intimately familiar with your local housing market. You're paying them in large part, and this is what goes so unnoticed, unfortunately, to be housing market experts. But how do you know how to test them in that area if you don't know what questions to ask? This show will help you dial that in, okay? So with that said, let's look at the housing market report for Florence, South Carolina for this third week of November as we are in Thanksgiving week. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And I want to move through this quickly because it's Thanksgiving week. I know everybody's got a lot going on, and so let's just make our way through this. The median list price is down about $10,000 on average now since the beginning of October. Now, if you remember on this show earlier in the year, we said around October, November, a lot of the surges and increases in numbers that we were seeing that were favorable were going to start to come down. And as you can see, median list price is reflecting that at this point in the year. Here in mid-November, Thanksgiving week. Moving right on through, average days on market since the July 4th turn is on the increase, now at almost 90 days across the board in all market segments. We're going to break this down by market segment here in just a moment. But for now, as a whole in Florence, the average days on market is 88 days, on the increase since the July 4th turn. And therefore, to be expected, properties with a price decrease also since the July 4th turn. These are going to run parallel to one another, is also on the increase and pretty significantly compared to that 30% target number that you like to see. And for the first time since spring, home prices in Florence are coming down. So they seem to have peaked in the second week of September, and we're now down a few dollars per square foot on average across all market segments in Florence. Real quick disclaimer, I also have to remind you, for those that aren't familiar with this show, this is active data. This is not sold homes data, and the caveat is this does not include new construction. But I like this tool. I like our market report because it updates every 7 days on Friday, and that's the dashed line you see here. So we have real-time data of our active market. A lot of times realtors, when they go to price a home, when they have a discussion with you about pricing strategies, submitting an offer if you're a buyer, anything like that, they're looking at sold data. The problem is sold data is only partially valuable. It doesn't tell the whole story. Reason being is very specific. When you put an offer in on a home, so when a home goes under contract, it typically on average closes 3 to 4 weeks after that. Well, real estate markets, as you can see here in these reports, can change drastically over a 3-week period, especially when you start talking about percentages, price per square foot, $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800,000 homes. You're talking about thousands of dollars. You don't want old data. You don't want to be making today's decisions on yesterday's news. So active data and in an environment where you can observe and predict the cyclical patterns of the housing market is extremely important when it comes to making these financial decisions. So that's the disclaimer on that. This is active data, not counting new construction, and it does update every 7 days. And one good thing to look at here that should be encouraging for everybody, buyers and sellers alike, is that inventory is still climbing. It's tapered off over the last couple of weeks, but inventory is still on the climb as compared to where we've been pretty much in the last 4 years. We did have that surge in 2022 as well. But inventory numbers for our local market are relatively high. In a lot of places in the country, that's not the case. So that's very encouraging for the Florence housing market. Really good news for a lot of us. And sellers may wonder, well, why is that good news for me? Well, there is a drawback because you have more competition for your homes. That is true. But it also shows that we're moving into a healthier market space. Because for the most part, as long as homes are being priced accordingly, which is what we're about to talk about, they are being sold. So there are buyers in the marketplace, albeit mortgage rates and all the different things that have gone on. So it is encouraging. It is encouraging. You can get your home sold if you need to or want to, but you do have to be sensitive to the housing market. And this is where people leave money on the table. This is where people run into a lot of trouble. And I will tell you, overpricing a home can be just as detrimental to your bottom line as underpricing it. It's something that people don't realize. It's 100% true. Let's go back to the average days on market and let's segment the market. Market segmentation is also critical. $700,000 homes don't relate to a local housing market the same way that $200,000 homes do. Typically, there will be commonalities and carryover to the data in a housing market, the trends, but there's also going to be differences in different segments of the market. So you have to segment the market according to where you are in it. And if you notice, the top portion of our market here in Florence has a much more significant spike in the average days on market than the bottom segment of our market. In fact, the lowest segment of our market is currently on a decline over recent weeks. But this is the top segment here, this blue line. And look at the increase since the beginning of August in the average days on market for these homes. Now, what do you think that means is happening to the price decreases? They're up at almost 60%, which is double that target number. That's high. That's not a number nationally that you really like to see. And as you can see, that number is higher than it's been in 4 years as an example. I mean, you can just see it right there. For this time of the year or any point at all, that's the highest that it's been. And if you compare that to the other market segments, you can see that other than the lowest market segment in Florence, there is this spike happening, but our top 90-day market segment, which this is the homes that are over $500,000, has the most significant spike, and the number itself, which is what we're really looking at, is over 20% higher than any other market segment in Florence. The rest are relatively close together. All right, so there's an outlier here, and I'm going to show you exactly why it is right here. Price per square foot. Since mid-June, pricing for the homes in the top market segment in Florence has continually climbed. Other market segments have declined. As you can see, the top market segment has not. It's just continually gone up. What that means is that sellers are not being sensitive in their pricing strategy to the local housing market. As a result, their homes are sitting on the market increasingly longer and longer. The most significant spike of any other segment in the market, the one right under it, is close, and nearly 60% of them are having to decrease their price. Now, this opens up a can of worms and multiple problems, which I'm not going to get into for the sake of the length of this episode. We've talked about this stuff in other videos on the channel, but it's the blood in the water effect. When your days on market increases, you start reducing price, buyers sense desperation, and now the quality of offers that you receive gets lesser and lesser. That's just a fact. It's not a situation you want to be in. Now, if you're already in that situation, you can get out of it. It's not the end of the world. You're going to have some strategy in how you approach things. It may even mean withdrawing from the market for a season and then re-entering with the correct strategy the next time around, but it can be a problem. It can seriously be a problem for sellers. And that's what we're seeing in our market. This is just the reality of the situation. This number up top, this blue line, needs to follow suit with the market segments below it and start to come down if sellers of the $500,000 home range and up are going to anticipate having a good experience in the marketplace and start to see that average days on market number stabilize out and start to come down and the properties with a price decrease number begin to come down. The last thing I'll say to kind of further solidify this is our market action index, this proprietary algorithm formula. And you see here that a buyer's market is 30 and below. Anything above 30 is a seller's market. And right now, overall in Florence, the grade is a 37, a slight seller's advantage. But if you segment the market, you see that the lower 90-day portion of our market, which is the $250,000 homes in Florence, sellers have the greatest advantage right now. And it's true. Home sellers in the 200,000s are really able to pretty easily have their way. If their home is free of major issues, it's clean, it's marketable, et cetera, then they're having a pretty good experience still, even at this point in the year in the market in Florence. The other two market segments have a grade in the 40s. They're still doing pretty well. But if you look at the top 90-day portion, that same portion, you see it significantly by almost 10 points compared to any other segment in the market, the lowest, with a grade of just under 34, which puts it at just above that line. So we're still in a seller's market overall, just because of the nature of where things are, inventory levels, that kind of thing, buyer demand, et cetera. But the reality is, you sellers in Florence, $500,000 and over, have the slightest advantage in the current marketplace. So all of this data is screaming the same message to sellers that are in the top market segment in Florence. And all I'm saying is that when you go into the marketplace and you develop your pricing strategy, you need to do it being sensitive of what the market is telling you. Because remember, we hire real estate agents to be market experts. That's really probably 80% of what we hire them for. And I think, unfortunately, that component of the profession goes extremely unnoticed by the public. And that's the purpose of this, is to educate the public. It should be eye-opening if you've never thought about any of it. It really should be. That aspect goes unnoticed. A lot of times we're satisfied if we have name recognition, if we have value in the marketing strategy that a real estate agent uses. We find that in the public satisfactory, and that checks our boxes. This is 80% of the job, because really all of those things are just a matter of either paying someone who's tech savvy or being tech savvy yourself. That has nothing to do with a local housing market. You're really hiring somebody to be intimately familiar and an expert in your local housing market. And so if you, the seller and the real estate agent, you have two people in the room and neither one of those people in the room fit that criteria, how in the world are you going to listen to what the local market is saying so that you can develop the right strategy as you enter into the marketplace and not have a negative experience? There's no way to do it. You're in a vacuum. So I say all that to say that I hope you do find this informative. I hope you find it helpful. And if you're looking to sell your home in Florence or wherever you're watching this from, I cannot encourage you enough to interview at least 3 to 6 real estate agents in your marketplace. Don't get an out-of-market real estate agent to sell your home in your market. That also would be a mistake, even if they're licensed in an entire state. So, for example, I wouldn't sell a home in Aiken. I really wouldn't do it. If I knew somebody in Aiken and they called me and said, listen, I want you to sell my home, I would tell them it's a disadvantage to you for me to do it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call and vet out the correct agent for them, because we're connected to a national network of realtors, and just send them a referral fee. Hire a local agent. Interview 3 to 6 local agents in your market that work in your market. They should be intimately familiar with your market. A lot of this stuff they should know off the top of their head. This should be the kind of stuff that they look at every day, or at least weekly, to stay on track with what's going on. And then from that point, you should be able to narrow it down and then decide who's the right fit for you. But what you don't want to do is leave money on the table that you didn't even realize you left on the table, because the tragic part of this is ineptitude in the real estate profession can easily go unnoticed. People often focus on mistakes where there's lawsuits and litigation, where something went wrong with a home, or inspections and things like that, and real estate agents get tied up in various things of malpractice, whatever it would be. This goes unnoticed because if you sell a home, you sit on the market longer than you should have, you didn't have a pre-inspection done, and it cost you a buyer, and that costed you 3 more months on the marketplace. And yes, these are all specific stories I've seen play out with people, and there go, you lost out on $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $10, $15, $20,000 because of various things that could have completely been avoided by being alert to the data, intimately familiar with the marketplace, and very thoughtful in how the process goes. You lose out on that money. You never know you lost out on it. The agent gets their check, they go on about their jolly business, and they may not even realize that it happened. They probably don't if it did, and nobody's any wiser to it. The reality is that money was left on the table that could have easily been in your pocket, and you'll never know it. You can't avoid every mistake and shortcoming. The only thing you can do in life is be educated and do your due diligence. Those are the things that you can control. Hopefully, these market reports not only keep you up to date with what's going on in Florence, in Myrtle Beach, in the areas that we service, but also it starts to give you that insight, to have that education, to know what questions to ask and be able to ask the right questions to the next real estate agent that you're considering hiring, whether you're selling or buying. And so with that being said, I hope you find it helpful. If you do, please give the video a like. I know that I say it on every video. A lot of people that do YouTube do as well, but it really helps the channel out a lot, which allows us to continue to put content like this out to you. So if you have watched this far, I ask that you please hit that thumbs up button down there in the bottom. That's extremely helpful, and I truly appreciate it. As always, I just appreciate your viewership in general. I hope you guys have a fantastic Thanksgiving coming up with your friends and family this Thursday and on into the weekend. In the meantime, y'all take care, and God willing, we'll see you on the next video.